see. He knows how to turn it on. Thank you. Anyway, welcome everybody. And yes, I was just mostly for the people who are watching online. We are here. We are going to be proceeding. Give us just a couple more minutes. Traffic around Portland has been horrible today. And so we just are running a little late. And this is a mic check. Thank you. Yeah? Sorry. And if nothing else, I was going to say while we were waiting, excuse me, that we could have just a brief, how do you know Charles? Which I can see, and I know how most of you know Charles, but maybe just show of hands. How many of you are through PMUG? And how many of you are through work, either his work or my work? And my thanks to the neighborhood contingent. How many of you are our neighbors? Yay! Anyway, thank you all for coming. Oh, well, you see, that's my brain but you're Mac too, but yes, science fiction group. Yay! All those things that Charles was into, and just people that we've known for years. So thank you all for coming. Be right back.
The summer sun is fading as the year grows on, and darker days are drawing near. The winter winds will be much colder. Now you're not here. Watch the birds fly south across the autumn sky, and one by one they disappear. I wish that I was flying with them. Now 'cause you're not here, 'cause you're not here, 'cause you're not here, 'cause you're not here, 'cause you're not here.
That song was Forever Autumn by Justin Hayward. That's a musician that I know Charles loved because he gave me a lot of MP3s from his whole collection. I just need a moment to catch my breath because after my father died, I found a camera and it gave me a chance to see the world through that person's eyes. Just like watching that just now made me see the beauty in the world the way that Charles saw it too. So, my name is Joshin Yamada. A lot of you know me through Portland Mac Users Group. On behalf of Janet and the rest of her family, I welcome you all, whether in person or online, to this memorial service. Janet has asked me to read a prepared statement for her. But before I do, I just wanted to say that I wouldn't be able to stand here and talk to you all like this without having had Charles in my life. I happened to meet the late Lynn Robbins, who was a PMUG steering committee member that probably many of you remember. And she encouraged me to volunteer with PMUG and teach classes for their Mac camp. And she told me to just go to a meeting and go find somebody named Charles DeVore and just tell him that she said that I should teach a class. And I told her I've never taught a class, and she said, no, just go do it. So I went to the next meeting and found this big bearded stranger guy and said, Lynn says I should teach a class for Mac camp. And he just goes, great. I couldn't, and I had to warn him too, I hadn't taught a class, but he just immediately from the start said that he had faith in me and thought I could do it. And then all along the way, he was just unstintingly supportive and said that he believed in me. And even though I couldn't sleep the night before, I still went up to him as my surrogate father figure, and he still just said, you're gonna do great. I'm so glad that after that I started volunteering with the PMUG clinics, where I got to spend so much time with Charles and Janet, getting to know them better. And Charles later took me in and mentored me in my own consulting business. First, he took me along on some jobs with him, and then later, after the sad passing of Michael Pierce, who also did the same kind of work, Charles split up the workload among the two of us. And I'm just gonna forever be grateful to both him and Janet for being in my life. So, in Janet's own words, Charles, Charlie, Chaz, he liked being called any of those names, but do not call him Chuck. I tried a couple times because I just thought like Charlie Brown, but boy, did he give me an eyeball. You're all here because you were his friends and helped him to enjoy his life and hobbies, whether it was computers or poker, and that was all right. He loved to be the photographer at events, having gathered all kinds of gear to do that. If he was bossy when he was getting people organized into a photo group, well, that's what he had to do. This made it more difficult to put the photos together because so many times he wasn't in the pictures, he was the one taking them. And I'm just thankful that he put up with my taking pictures of him across the dinner table for all the various events and places that we'd go to. Charles was born and raised in Wallace, Idaho on November 3rd, 1950. At that time, mining was the main industry in the Silver Valley, mostly green hills linked by Interstate 90. The house for most of those years was on 9 Mile Road, tucked between a 2-lane road and a creek, with hillsides on both sides. His parents, John and Maud DeVore, put together that house by combining some apartments taken from a different building. His bedroom was upstairs, and there the insulation was thin. Maud cooked on a wood-burning stove, and she was from Mississippi, so she taught him to love grits. The family used to go to Mississippi to visit her large family on vacations. It was a mad drive across the country in a car with the windows down for air conditioning. Charles was much younger than his brothers, Sam, Pat, and Johnny. Charles was preceded in death by his parents and 2 of his brothers, Pat and Sam. He's survived by his in-laws, Sandra Pope, Jeff Scott, Mark Scott, and Jodine and Kevin Krieg. He's also survived by his nephews and nieces, John and Sarah DeVore, George DeVore, Jim and Helen Pope, Ian and Erica Doty, John and Rihanna Krieg, Janice and Jay Helms, Julie and John Petro, Trish Doty, Kaylee and Ben Baker, as well as grandnephews and nieces and many, many cousins. In high school, Charles enjoyed choir and theater. He was active in square dancing. He managed to acquire keys to the school building in his high school years, leading to some unauthorized but never destructive entries. One of his last tasks before graduation was to surrender the keys back to one of the teachers. While he was still in the Silver Valley came the craze of CB radios. His handle in the radio world was White Wizard, and he made many friends through it. They would have picnics, and he helped at the restaurant that one of the married couples ran, and it was a good time for him. With some other friends, Charles started a tradition of cooking a large turkey dinner to be served at midnight on New Year's Eve. He took some classes at North Idaho College in Coeur d'Alene. He worked in one of the mines briefly, but he did not like the humidity underground. He found a position at Silver Hills Junior High School as custodian, and that was a very good fit. He came to Portland in 1977 to visit several transplants from Wallace, including me. I had moved to Portland about a year earlier. He also had a job interview at Electro Scientific Industries, which was just off of Highway 26, and they hired him right off the bat for custodial work. He went home, gave notice at his job, and told his parents that he was moving to Portland. One of the things he appreciated about Portland is that he'd gotten very tired of shoveling snow in Idaho's winters. He and I started to be an official couple. Charles's love of photography became evident when he showed up unannounced at his good friend Wade Griffith's house and asked to speak with Mr. Griffith. Usually Charles and Wade got into many young men's scrapes, like horsing around and driving their cars through the middle of Coeur d'Alene with Wade standing up through the sunroof, waving a flag. Wade was afraid that Charles was going to get them in trouble, but it turned out that all Charles wanted to do was talk to Wade's father about camera equipment. Charles had just gotten an SLR camera like Mr. Griffith, and he wanted to talk about the features. Eventually, Charles acquired several of them and camera lenses to go on them, as well as tripods and related gadgets. Over the years, Chaz was saddened to see film cameras replaced by iPhones. He took a lot of pictures. His specialty was close-ups of flowers, and he also liked interesting clouds. Charles was an enthusiastic advocate for the new digital scanners that let us scan old family slides. He scanned a lot of old family photographs and encouraged us to have old family videos and movies get digitized in order to share them with the rest of the family. Charles and I got married July 21st, 1979 in Wallace, Idaho. It was, like today, 105 degrees. Actually, no exaggeration. We lived in an apartment off Canyon Road near Highway 217. That's where we were when Mount St. Helens erupted, and we hadn't even noticed a thing until one of our friends came by. Soon we were able to buy a house at 60 Southwest Murray Road. Charles always called it 60th and Murray. It was a good place because it was easy for me to get downtown to work when Phillips Electronic Alarms was located in Northwest Portland, and Charles's job at ESI was just minutes away. We were there for about 10 years. That's where we were collecting books, many from the Science Fiction Book Club, and music records filling shelves and shelves. When we bought that house, he researched and shared information with friends, found out about stereo equipment to get good quality sound, and fancy turntables and speakers, the kind where you had to clean the record before you played it, and not just stack them like they used to in the old days. We would work together in the yard. That house came with 25 rose bushes, and he did the spraying and pruning of those. He loved growing tomatoes in the garden, but then he realized it was not efficient. He was sad when he could no longer keep up with helping with the outside yard maintenance at the current house because he would normally do the pruning and I would mow the lawn. Most of the time, he was able to do our house maintenance using his large tool collection. One year, we had grapes in our yard, and we actually made sparkling wine and jelly. Our specialty is to make Kahlua. He didn't drink it, as he didn't like strong, sweet coffee at that time, but made it for me. He got to where he would drink caramel macchiatos at Starbucks, so I guess he learned to like strong, sweet coffees. We never felt the longing for an RV or a camping tent. We would much rather be in a hotel. Our first 10 years together was spent discovering the fun of going to the used record stores and buying records for very cheap prices. Come home, clean them, play them, catalog them. Other hobbies included reading books, playing backgammon and Uno with friends, going to the Saturday market, going out for dinner, and more visiting with friends. He was happy to cook, as he always wanted to make sure that he had real meals. He made the best pumpkin pie based on his mother's recipe, which he later adapted in consideration for his diabetes. He put out olives for me even though he didn't like them, and he would make homemade cranberry sauce. He liked potatoes, grits, and corn. I would cringe sometimes when we would have meat, potatoes, and corn as dinner. For breakfast, it might be eggs and bacon and pancakes. Pancakes with fruit or nuts are both frequent options. Other specialties were pork noodles and his homemade chicken soup. In later years, we would eat out fairly often. We found some restaurants that we really enjoyed and go back there over and over, especially Mazatlan Mexican Restaurant on Cornell Road, Tom's Pancake House on Canyon Road, and the China Rim Restaurant on Saltzman. We were fortunate to be able to go out frequently and to do takeout during COVID to keep our favorite places running. It helped us to know the staff in such a way that they would know how we would like our meal fixed and by what we were ordering. We were willing to try new places, but always found ourselves returning to our tried and true favorites, like Tom's on Fridays because they had very good clam chowder. He also loved to play pinochle, but he didn't get to do it very much because I didn't want to learn, and he didn't really know many other people who did. He went through various games on the computer and was happy when iPads became really good for that because he could play pinochle or cribbage and some of those shoot-'em-up type games. In our early years in the current house, we had the computer rooms upstairs. Friends would come over and play early versions of the network games, especially Marathon. staying up until 2 or 3 in the morning, which was fun when we were young. When home computers came along, we started with the Texas Instruments TI 99-4A, then got a Franklin Ace 1000, an Apple II clone. We stopped buying books, cut back on the music, and then we got our first Macintosh. Charles got a Macintosh SE after helping someone write a book of instructions, and then we had to buy another Mac, this time a Mac Plus, so both of us could do this Mac thing. We joined PMUG and became active volunteers. When PMUG had their offices at the Galleria, Charles and Bill Custis were amongst the ones who started hosting Tuesday night clinics for people to come in and ask questions. They also built up PMUG College to be an ongoing schedule of classes. After PMUG had to close the Galleria office, we were meeting at retail places. Charles started working at the Mac store on Cedar Hills Boulevard and was able to convince the management to let us host Tuesday clinics in the store. He didn't join in when I would go to the East Side clinics or when we had PMUG College because I was already on that side of town and it didn't make sense for him to come over all that way. We got hooked on Mac Camp. Again, Charles stepped in to coordinate these events. The friends that we've met through PMUG, it was just fun for us to be part of PMUG, to have people who enjoy talking about the same thing we did. He was president and vice president of PMUG for several different years, but he later chose to step back and only volunteer as an officer at large. It started because he wanted to help lead PMUG, and he was comfortable reaching out to find speakers for general meetings, occasionally filling in and leading a presentation on a topic himself. We both believed in the value of the user group and our friendships within it. And so there were times when there were times that no one else would step up, he would take up and be an officer again. But ultimately, he felt it best for the leadership positions at PMUG to turn over and find new blood so it stays fresh. Over the years, we both worked a variety of shifts, including swing shift and graveyard. He was very good at knowing the products for cleaning and grew his career as custodian, and he knew good techniques for keeping up a commercial building. He worked up to managing the custodial crew and stayed through various layoffs to a point where he was put in charge of the stock room. He did his best to bring that back up to standards, but then was laid off. By 1991, he had started doing some private computer consulting, or we had started doing some private consulting, calling ourselves C-Dev Solutions. So he worked that into an almost full-time job. He had a heart attack in 1997, and when he recovered from that, he went back to private consulting. When that wasn't really bringing in steady income, he went back to work for the Mac store on Cedar Hills Boulevard for about 5 years. One of the advantages of working at the Mac store was that they had a series of clever t-shirts, which is what you see him wearing for many, many years. It's almost always one of the Mac store shirts or one of the other commemorative shirts such as Mac World or from a science fiction event. We mostly enjoy the same kind of TV programs, Star Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who, and other science fiction genres, as well as detective shows like NCIS and game shows like Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune. He enjoyed when I would head off to work so that he could watch Japanese anime movies and TV shows on his own. We both were big fans of the American science fiction TV show Firefly. Fans of that show called themselves Browncoats, and Portland had an enthusiastic fandom that held events at the conventions. A highlight for us was to help with the 2015 restoration of the aerial ambulance prop from the show. It was a full-sized fiberglass helicopter-shaped vehicle. The PDX Browncoats even got it into the Rose Festival Starlight Parade. Unfortunately, he could turn on the TV and let it play in the background, whereas I would get sucked into watching every show. It was better for me to have music in the background, but he was the opposite. Music was distracting to him because he wanted to be involved in actively listening to every detail. For many years, we always looked to our favorite vacation, going to San Francisco at the Macworld Expo. We would see many people, even some from Portland, that we only saw once a year in San Francisco at Macworld. We also learned so much from other user groups, like how they did things and sharing how we did things at PMUG. Most years, we would also manage a visit to Idaho to see family and classmates. I'm thankful that we did get to go on some fun trips. In his younger years, he very much enjoyed driving, although that diminished in the past few years. We drove into Canada twice and had gone to Mexico through Arizona. Our final big trip was to the Midwest. He was pleased that he did not have to take his shoes off at the airport security gate. Besides PMUG, we also got into attending science fiction conventions, mostly here in the Portland area, not so much the big media conventions, but Oricon, which was more literary based. Going to the panels where they would talk about various topics or going to the masquerade costume contests. We took official pictures at Masquerade for a couple of years. One year, we ran the Internet Cafe whenever people were wanting to get on the internet, but phones were not just automatically in your pocket. He was so happy to have a cape and a hat made by Barbara Hoffert, and also to get some more hats, like vintage hats, bowler hats, and top hats. He normally wore suspenders, so his outfits would be a t-shirt or knit shirt and suspenders and hat, baseball hat or Philips Electronics hat, Apple hat. Although he didn't always have a fancy costume, he was also excited to get fangs for his teeth. And after that, he would wear them on Halloween and at the conventions. He enjoyed sharing his knowledge and opinion of the Macintosh and Apple technical world by writing articles for PMUG's newsletter, Mousetracks. He wanted to help people keep up on the latest events, showing what he thought was important. He would write it out and give me it to edit so that it was a joint effort. He could be kind of stern when answering some questions at PMUG College or the clinic, but that's just because he wanted to make sure that people understood the seriousness of the information. He would read informational articles on many topics. He did a lot of reading about computers once we got involved in the Macintosh. He was also very interested and absorbed all of the information that people on PMUG would tell us, as well as additional reading and working with the hardware. In the early days, he would upgrade hard drives and add RAM and help people with their system setups, and he would read about what was coming out. Maybe he couldn't remember your name, but he would remember how much RAM was in your computer and how much it cost. While working at the Mac store, he studied the Apple sales pitches and instructions and did their ongoing training for the salespeople and the tips and techniques. He would try to sell people the computer they needed, not the one that they thought they wanted, by making sure they understood the needs of how they were going to use the computer moving forward. Even after he was no longer working for the store, he still made it a habit to keep up on reading to be aware of what was important for PMUG members to know. In the last few years, we both decided not to be the guinea pigs who tried out all of the newest buggy software. We also no longer had to have the latest hardware. He was very excited when the Apple Watch came out and that would help him monitor his heart. He was using a blood glucose monitor, but did not always trust the readings that it gave. He enjoyed watching cooking shows and how to do things shows, as well as the Antiques Roadshow. I don't know how many techniques he learned from watching these shows or whether he already knew them, but they were of interest to him. In our first years of being married, we always enjoyed renovating some wooden furniture, acquiring pieces and stripping them down and then restaining them. We have his family's big oak kitchen table. We also had purchased a couple of armoires and modified an old wooden liquor cabinet into our stereo cabinet so that we could have a setup without the equipment showing in the room. If we were not as ambitious with home projects in later years, it probably saved us some money. In addition to many books and discovering interesting musicians by frequenting secondhand shops for vinyl records and CDs, we were avid collectors. We still have many old Apple computers, desktops, and laptops, and the various operating systems for them. He kept all the old equipment in running order so that he was always ready to help somebody rescue their data. We were realizing that some of it could be consolidated, and yes, some of the old hardware has to go, but we had a fine appreciation for some of that equipment and how well it really could work. There weren't enough hours to take the time to properly use it all. Charles was firm in his opinions in certain people, certain techniques, such as cooking or computing. At some points, he could have a temper, but mostly he would hold it in whenever he disagreed with certain topics. He loved some kinds of jokes, although more to share them online than to use them in conversation the way that some friends do. He might have seemed laid back or reserved in some situations. He did not always have to be talkative, but he was comfortable when it came time to lead a meeting. Although we chose not to have children, the house still had more than 2 occupants. Realizing you could keep cats inside all the time, we got 2 sisters, Loki and Pippin, as kittens. After they passed, we were pleased to adopt Kirby from some friends. We also cat-sat Honey and Shad over a few years. Charles will be remembered each year at Christmas with ornaments depicting buildings around Wallace on our small reusable tree. We have so many now that they are the only things on the tree, and he enjoyed the remainder of the history there. In the Apple tradition, there's one more thing. Do you know that Charles has an entry in the Internet Movie Database? Yes, he's movie famous. He was invited to participate in a documentary about Macintosh called Welcome to Macintosh. From 2008, a 90-minute documentary, the first of its kind to mix history, criticism, and an unapologetic revelry of all things Apple into a movie experience. He represented user groups because they were important to spreading the Apple knowledge in the early days, and we appreciated that Apple supported us in the early days. You can watch this on YouTube. So, thank you, Janet. And thank you all again for being here in person and online. We have another slideshow for everyone to enjoy. that brought a lot of good memories for me, and I hope it's brought some of you as well. Perrin is going to do a reading right now, and then if anybody else would care to come up and speak as well afterwards, please feel free to. Thank you, Perrin.
Thank you. Good to see you all. Is it on? Yeah, okay. Excuse me. Janet wanted to share with me a passage that was recommended by a friend of hers in Idaho who could not be here today. This is from the book Into the Tangle of Friendship by Beth Kephart. Some friendships begin with a slow, quiet drawl. Others bang into being. There are moments, filters, tests that fortify some ties and snuff out others. Friends are the multicolored cloaks we wear, the circles we draw around us, the chores we share, the letters we wait for, the gifts we want to buy, the heartaches we take on as our own, the place we turn with our fears, our wants, our sadness. Friends are even there when they are not. We talk to them in our heads. I wish you could see this. I wish you were here. Who knows what needle takes what thread and seams two people together? There is nothing less tangible than friendship, and so little, or very little, so potent. So feel free to come up and remember, as you will, Charles, our good friend. Sir. Look at the schedule.
Oh, you want me to be on a step? I think I'm short. I'm vertically challenged, not short. Charles. He was an intelligent and curious man. He learned all that he could about Apple and its products. He spread that knowledge to the rest of us. He wrote Winds of Change in our monthly newsletter, Mousetracks. He led Q&A discussions at our monthly meetings and arranged speakers for our meetings when he was president. And this is referring to PMUG, Portland Macintosh Users Group. He partnered with his wife, Janet, in running Mac Camp, a weekend of education, camaraderie, and fun. He mentored many of us. He helped others with their computer problems, often replacing RAM and internal storage. Charles had a sense of humor. I enjoyed checking out his Facebook page where he posted amusing signs that he found on the web. Charles could laugh at himself. Remember the dinning hall at Mac Camp? We harassed him so much on that, but he took the ribbing well, knowing it was all in fun. My late husband, Bob, and I joined PMUG in 1988, the same year that Charles and Janet joined. Bob and I went to Macworld Expo in San Francisco in January. Since my college roommate lived in the Bay Area, we usually made it an annual event. One year, I remember walking down a long corridor in the Moscone Center, which was the convention center. There, down near the entry to the exhibit area, was Charles and Janet. I think Janet shrieked, and I did too, like, oh, there's friends. And I remember running to them and giving big hugs all around. Another January, Ron Smith, Charles, and Janet joined us in traveling to see Apple's HQ at One Infinity Loop. There was a photo of that. We visited the store, bought t-shirts, I'm wearing one of them, hats, notepads, and anything Apple. We were fortunate and got to have lunch there at the impressive cafeteria. On that trip, or another one, we took the cable car to Fisherman's Wharf and did touristy stuff. Those were fun times. Charles was a kind man. My late husband Bob and I joined Charles and Janet for dinner at China Rim. After Bob passed, Charles and Janet would invite me to dinner at China Rim or Mott's Lawn Restaurant. We celebrated our birthdays. We had visits of Janet's family who attended Mac Camp. And we would go just because we had a hankering for pot stickers and good food. Charles was especially kind to me. He always gave me a hug. He gave me advice on my computer that Bob would have given me if he'd still been here. I feel he was always making sure I was making wise decisions about my Apple products. I will miss him, his chuckle, his laugh, his hugs. The thing that we have, the memories of our people and friends, are their stories. So I encourage you to all come up here who feel like it to tell us stories about this great guy, Charles.
Hello, my name's Steve, and the heckling I did from the back is a well-known tradition for, I think the people who laughed have probably been at Mac Camp. So Charles would always have we'd have a Friday night, we'd have like a sort of an introduction to the class, and he would tell everything, the camp, and he would let people know that all of the information was in your schedule, and including all the meals. And then invariably, someone would always ask him when dinner was. So we just started heckling him from the back. We heckled him about gifts. We heckled him about all sorts of things, and he took it in stride. So it was a lot of fun. Look forward to it every camp. The reason camp's important to me is because when I was looking for an area to move to from California, I'd been in user groups before, and so I started searching for a Mac users group. And I came across PMUG, and I said, okay, they have a Mac users group. There's not many of those around, but that's cool. But then I saw this photo that showed a bunch of fools going into cabins with their computers, and I said, I gotta be part of that. That's pretty cool. So I ended up moving here, and so largely because of Charles and Janet, keeping the Mac Camp light alive for decades, I made the decision to move here. I made lots of friends, and I found a wife. So that was So indirectly, because of Charles and Janet in the club, I'm happily married now. So Charles was always kind of like, it was one of those things. Joshin made the comment about, teach a class, and Charles lit up. And I made the mistake of telling Charles I was a software engineer. And he was like, oh, you're going to teach lots of classes for me. So, which I loved, and the thing I loved about PMUG, the thing I loved about Charles, is that he largely did it out of the desire to help other people, and that's what I was into also. So we really clicked on that regard. So it was never a burden or anything to teach a class because it was fun, and I always had concerns about teaching a 3 hours a class, and Charles would be like, "Don't worry about it, it's going to be over before you know it," and it always was. And so it became sort of a goal of mine to figure out how I could make Charles scuffle or something during one of my classes by saying something off kilter. So that was always a kind of a fun thing. I don't know if people know that was going on, but that was a little thing between me and Charles. So it was a lot of fun. And I think that having people in your life who are giving and who give of their time and their expertise and their interest in things is incredibly important. And so for me, it was a very, defining, we have those moments in our life where we make defining decisions. Some of them go well, and this was one of them. So I'm gonna miss Charles, and we'll continue to honor him at camp, and we'll just gonna really miss him.
Well, it was, whoa, that is loud. It's been said that Charles was a mentor, and he certainly mentored me. I was a Mac newbie in 1990, and there were these classes going on called the Portland Mac PMUG College. And so I started taking these free classes, and they were very interesting. And then at one point, I took all the classes, every single one. And then, like, near the end, it's like Charles said, well, you could teach this. I'm going, what? I'm an introvert. It's like I don't normally get up and speak in front of people. So he's going, well, just pick one and take it several times, and you'll be, and we tell you what to say and what to do. It's like it's all laid out. You just follow the, follow the instructions. So I started teaching PMUG College, and little did he know that was actually going to help me in my later career, which is teaching at Portland Community College. So thank you, Charles, for that. It really helped give me the courage and to believe that I could actually get in front of people and sound like I knew something. So also, he was the one responsible for turning me into a geek. So I am now an official geek. Thank you, Charles.
I don't think I need the step, but my name's Chris Winkley, and I'm humbled to be surrounded by all the computer people. I thought I was amongst many. Oh, there you go. Many people who know the difference between a mouse and a keyboard, and I can generally find the power switch. So Chaz and Janet introduced me to computers back many long years ago. I was keeping all my music index on index cards, and Janet actually said, we have a program, we can make that so you can get to it. Yeah. And later it turned into Excel, which we probably won't talk about Microsoft products. Anyway, Chaz and I, and I knew him his whole life as Chaz, go back to 1977, 48 years. We worked together at Electro Scientific Industries. It's kind of unusual to find somebody with whom you share so many things. We raced cars, we loved music, we read a lot of books, we played Frisbee, shot a lot of pool, played chess, and at one time, in the Wayback Machine, we were party animals. So, a fun story, how you help people, probably somewhere in the early 80s when we were playing Frisbee, Chaz went out for one of those long shots and grabbed for the Frisbee and slipped on a slope and broke his wrist. And so we took him to the hospital for that. It wasn't but a few months after that Cater Carroll, guy that worked at ESI, was selling pepperoni for his daughter. And he said, you should try this. And I said, well, I don't eat much meat. And he said, no, you really should try this. So Chaz and I used to carry knives around, knives people. So I whip out my folding knife, click it open, hang onto the end of the pepperoni, and proceed to cut to the bone on my index finger, so probably an inch off. So I went to the restroom. I'm an Eagle Scout, and went to the restroom and wrapped it up in paper towels, and every time I looked at it, it was still bleeding a lot. And Chaz came in and he said, you need to go to the hospital. I said, why is that? It's fine. And he said, no, you're white as a sheet. So 5 stitches later, we had returned the favor. So, Chaz and Janet have been friends through a divorce, and Terry and I, my lovely bride, we moved to the Tri-Cities in 2016, and they still visit, come through on their way to Idaho and stay with us. So always welcome. You know, Chaz may have passed on to whatever comes next, but he lives on in my mind and my heart. Thank you.
Yeah, my name's Ron Schmidt, and I met Janet and Charles when I signed up for their class at the Galleria, and that was my favorite thing to do every week was go down to the Galleria and take that class, learn how to use it, because I gave up on Microsoft, wasn't going back. So we had some really good times. We went to, we had swap meets. I would help him out selling all the stuff, and he helped me pick out my first computer, which was an iMac, and then we had Mac Camp, and he said that, I said I need to buy a laptop for that, and he said, no, you don't. So he talked me into buying a bag to carry my iMac, and I would carry it, 27-inch iMac, to camp there every day in between the classes. A lot of weight. And since I worked for the airlines, Charles and Janet, we went to Macworld together a number of times and had a really good time, really, really good time seeing everything. I remember standing on the steps going down into the convention area, and we were just like, horses lined up to race type of thing. We wanted to get in there, and you never could see everything. I mean, you tried and you tried and you tried, and you never could see everything. And then in our free time, while we're down in San Francisco, I remember going to see the movie Avatar, which had just come out, and they wanted to see it, and I'd already seen it, but I figured I'm going again. So we just had a really good time hanging out, and he taught us all how to play, use the computer and everything. And one thing I could say about Charles that everybody should remember is to back it up.
Does anybody else have anything that they want to add? Otherwise, oh, wonderful. All right.
Hi, my name is Donnell, and I met Charlie, he was Charlie, when I was in junior high school back in the early 70s. And he worked at a youth club underneath the library, and he just was one of the nicest guys I'd ever met. As I grew older, we started hanging out and doing more adult type things, shall we say, in high school. My mom and dad really liked Charlie, and he took me to my first concert, Chicago, in Spokane, which was a real trip. I really enjoyed it. I was there when Charlie came to visit in Portland, and I was there and helped him move to Portland when he made the big move. So I got to watch him and Janet get together and fall in love and get married and enjoy some very, very good times. And he was a super guy. I'm sorry I don't have anything to say about computers, but I know if I ever needed a question answered, I could contact Charlie and Janet. So anyway, he was a super guy, and I'm really going to miss him. And I love you, Janet.
for one, am grateful that we had people from different aspects of Charles's life, like his Wallace days, his ESI days, and PMUG, which I'm more familiar with myself. Thank you, everybody. We now have a performance from Jill Covey.
So this, hello, is this on? Okay, just checking. Yep, and that's on. So this song was by special request. Have I told you lately that I love you? Have I told you there's no one else above you? Filled my heart with gladness, take away my sadness, ease my troubles, that's what you do. The morning sun in all its glory greets the day with hope and comfort too. You fill my heart with laughter, you can make it better. You ease my troubles, that's what you do. There's a love that's divine, and it's yours and it's mine, like the sun. At the end of the day, we should give thanks and pray to the one, to the one. Have I told you lately that I love you? Have I told you there's no one else above you? You fill my heart with gladness, you take away my sadness, you ease my troubles, that's what you do. You fill my heart with gladness and take away my sadness, you ease my troubles, that's what you do. So Janet would like to invite you now to join her and everybody in the gallery for treats and drinks and good conversation.